I guess I'm up next with a little presentation. I'll try not to bore you too much. Again, I'm staying away from the stats and facts. But yeah, as Andrea mentioned, this conference is called Reaching New Heights. You'll be able to tell I just learned how to use animations in PowerPoint. So I use them throughout, and I hope you really enjoy them because it took me a long time. There may be too drawn out, but anyways. So I just want to start by saying, when we think of reaching new heights, there's a lot to think about. There is, where are we? Where are we going? But also when it comes to farming, we know that it's more than just about the farm. We know it's about you as a person, your capacity to reach new heights. How high do you want to go? As well as I see Nessa smiling. Hi, Nessa. As well as your family, right? Like, where are they in this journey? Where do they want to go? And where are they on this proverbial mountain? And what do they need to reach those new heights? And the people you work with as well. So, oftentimes we think of farm business management and we think of finances and spreadsheets. And I'm sorry, Stu, that's not what farm business management is only about. No, I know you know that. I just had to make one little joke. But, it's about so many things. But at the end of the day, it's about people. And I think sometimes as farmers, it's easy to think about everyone else and not think about yourself. And we're going to talk about that a lot today, too. You're part of the equation. You're a very important part of the equation. Your capacity to reach new heights and what that means for you is something that we need to keep in mind at all times. So the three sisters, I'm not from around here, so I always like to do a little bit of research. So I don't know if any of you, maybe if you came in early this morning, it was a bit too dark. But let's see, where are we oriented? So over there, we have the three mountains, and they're known as the three sisters. So I thought, I'll do a little lesson here, look it up. But anyways, the cool thing about the three sisters, and you remember Elder Goodstriker last night was talking about, the history of the land and welcoming us to the land and wishing us, a good conference and good spirits. And so it's interesting because when you look at the indigenous peoples, they called something else the three sisters as well. And it actually has agricultural roots. So it's the corn and the beans and the squash are referred to as the three sisters in agriculture because without each other, they stand to not be as strong. So you've got the corn stalk and, the beans cling on to those to sustain their life. But you also have the squash and kind of the ground coverage and keeping the moisture in. So I thought that was kind of cool because I said, not only do we have three sisters out there in these beautiful mountains, and I hope you get a chance to see them and see this beautiful town of Canmore, but we also have three sisters as it relates to Indigenous and as it relates to agriculture. So how cool is that? And then I was like, I like a good analogy. What are the three sisters of farm management? So then I got thinking, and I was like, okay, what are the things that we, kind of divided they fall, together they stand. And so this is my personal perception, and I like alliteration. I'm an English lit background. So preparation, that makes sense. Preparation, so you're assessing where are we, you're evaluating what's going on out there, what's going on in here and in here. What is around the corner, how can we best prepare for that? Risk assessments, business plans, all that fun stuff. I love it, I eat it up. But also perseverance, because it's not always going to be a smooth road like it is in Canmore. It's such a beautiful road. Sometimes there's bumps in the road and there's, detours we have to take along the way, and you have to persevere, and we need to be able to stand strong in that and have our capacity. We need to get enough sleep. We need to eat right. We need to be fit to get through those difficult times and, get over those obstacles. But we also need to have passion, right? Like, I wouldn't be talking about, I started this, I was just thinking about this when I was up here. I was 27 when I was first on this stage. I wouldn't tell you how old I am now. But it's been a few years, let me tell you. But I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't passionate about it. And I know all of you are so passionate about your work. And that's what really can drive you as well, right? You see an obstacle in the road and you're like, yeah, but this is what I love to do. This is what makes my heart sing, and the people around me and my family. And so we need that passion. But then I was like, But is that enough? It's like preparation, perseverance, passion. And then I thought, everyone has a favorite aunt, right? We've got the 3 sisters, love the sisters, they're great, standing together, being strong. And then we always have that favorite aunt. And to me, that favorite aunt of farm business management is compassion. So we also have to have compassion, I think. And I wish it started with a P, but it doesn't. Whatever, I'll get over it. But compassion not only for those around us, right? We might not always think the same way. We might not always, agree to go in the same direction right away. But compassion for perspective, compassion for where we are in our lives, our ages and our stages. Maybe we're raising young kids and we need a little bit of compassion because we need a little extra time to get ready in the morning, or we need to leave work a little early to take care of family needs, etc. But I think also compassion for ourselves, right? Like I am the worst for this, for sure. So it's something that I try and hold near and dear and remember all the time. Be kind to yourself, right? Like, can that email wait until Monday? Probably. Is it a life or death situation? Most of the times it's not. So I would say, compassion for yourself. And as we think of this mountain, analogy, like it's okay to stop along the way. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to hang out at, this level for a while, all the while thinking, that's where we want to go. But, if we're not pacing ourselves as we move there and as we get there, then, that can lead to some pretty difficult times. It can lead to, things like burnout, but certainly stress and pressure. And it's never fun to try and feed your passion while you're thinking, is this worth it? Or what am I giving up along the way? So be compassionate to yourself and compassionate to others. And I think that goes with, the farm, the family, yourself. So I like to steal quotes from people, and these are 3 I stole, and I'll give the reference at the end, but I wanted to read them one at a time, because for me, when I think of farm business management and all the farmers I've talked to and run into throughout the however many years I've been doing this, we talk a lot about or see a lot of evidence of, intentions and attitudes and cultures and values and the part that plays in the running of the farm, the success of the farm, but also the people involved in the farm and the next generation, and kind of how they are moving into the farm operation, but also the lessons that they've learned along the way, and what they hold near and dear. And so I'm going to read this out because I like to cling to the words, but we need to be intentional about creating and cultivating the types of habits that will lead to the success we want. Sometimes that means being brave. Sometimes that means stepping out of tradition or out of line, but being intentional and thinking about what is going to get me there. What is it? What got you here won't get you there. I think that's the Marshall Goldsmith quote. But it really is true. And especially I love how this applies to the farm business management side of things. And when we look at, leaving a legacy and leading through that. And in this context as well, farm business management certainly, but other contexts, the habits of the leader, and I underline good or bad, contribute to the level of success the operation experiences. And we actually have a workshop on leadership at this conference, lo and behold. But I can't tell you the close connection between business and leadership. To me, they're 2 sides of the same coin. Without one, you don't have the other. But these habits can be good and they can be bad, and they can be passed on good and they can be passed on bad. So to be aware of that as we go through our everyday, and, what do we hold dear, and how do we, when new ideas come along, how do we treat them? How do we welcome them? How do we test them? When people think differently than us or come from a different perspective, how do we open ourselves to that opportunity? And attitudes towards management are both learned and contagious. And I know that word contagious is a bit weird right now, especially given the world, but I think of it as contagious laughter. So that's why I love that word, that it's, that it catches on, right? Same with our passion. So it's learned as in, you can learn new things, and we can learn, hey, the importance of doing our risk assessments and doing our personality profiles, whatever it takes to understand where we are and where we're going. And knowing that that's going to empower and inspire those around us. And sometimes, like I said, it means stepping out of our comfort zone. And there, there's help for that, which is the good news. Darren Fry is the guy that said all these wonderful things, and he writes for a publication in the States, Farm Futures. So you can always check him out, but I find his words very inspiring. So I don't know if this is a quote from someone else, but I'd like to think I thought of it. I Googled it and it didn't come up, so it's like, copyright Heather Watson right here. So when I was thinking, when Denise was like, okay, I need a description for your presentation at AgEx, and I was like, reaching new heights, reaching new heights, reaching new heights. And for me, like, the thought of reaching new heights is exhausting, especially after having so much bacon for breakfast. But, the thought of reaching new heights, for me, at first I'm like, but I'm already so busy, and I'm just like, I can't take on something more, like, I don't want to climb the mountain. But then when you shift your thinking and you think, but what's best for you? Like, how can you, show up in your best way? Like, what are the things that are really impeding you? And for someone like me, I tend to say yes to everything. I tend to take on too much. I tend to think, yeah, we could do that, or we could do this. And then I wonder why I'm tired all the time. But, thinking of doing my best are things like, finding time to do the things I love, finding time to make time for work and life. And so for me, doing my best, my mountain is work-life balance, is family relations, is, I feel like the work mountain, it's kind of conquered. Like, I've kind of dedicated all my time to climbing that mountain, and I have a new mountain in front of me that I need to climb. So thinking about, not rah, 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 business, 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 and, profit, profit, profit. Profit's great, don't get me wrong, but, to make sure that we're taking kind of a balanced approach that appreciates, ourselves, as well as the farm, as well as the family, planet, you name it. So the big question is, I kind of talked about what success looks like for me. In short, it would be a cottage on a lake, to be honest. And it's funny, I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but just bear with me. Cottage on a lake, right? I've always wanted this all my life. And then you take a look at, someone comes along who's very inspiring and very wise, and he's at this conference. And he comes along and he says, well, what's your vision? Like, where do you want to be in life? Like, what do you want your life to look like when you're 50, whatever. And I was like, I want a cabin on a lake. And he's like, okay, where you are today, is that going to get you there? And I'm like, absolutely not. And so all of a sudden you start making different choices and different decisions, because you can, make these little tweaks along the way, and just, remembering where you want to go. So success for me, there's lots of definitions, and everyone has different definitions for themselves and for their farm and their business, etc. But I think it's really important to reflect on that, because I think it's really easy, especially when you're in a business and you're, you've got lots of influencers in your life. It's really easy for others to try and define what success should look like for you. But I would encourage you to take a moment, write down, what does success look like for me, for the farm, for the family, etc., etc. But back to yourself, right? Back to your, what does success look like for yourself? What does doing the best look like for yourself? And then, so is it financial? Maybe it is. Maybe that's a component. I'm not saying it's one thing or another. It's probably a little sprinkle of things, right? It's probably a little recipe. Well, we talk about recipes for success. Look at that. It all works out in the end. But the recipe for success, a little dab of financial, little dab of environmental, family, mental health, should be, probably, looking at the stats, entrepreneurship. Maybe you're like a Terry Aberhart and you just have this raging entrepreneur inside of you, and you're just like, opportunity, opportunity. That's awesome. Embrace it. And how does that become part of the plan? Physical health, really important, right? It's hard to make good decisions when you're exhausted. Farm legacy, relationships, innovation, expansion. I put some businessy stuff in there, of course. It's not all like, lovey-dovey up here, although it is pretty lovey-dovey up here, I have to admit. But, I mean, not to say this is an exhaustive list at all, but I wonder how often do we ask ourselves, what does success look like? What does a good life look like? What do I want on my epitaph if we want to get serious about it? So, of course, as we're scaling this mountain back to the three sisters that are in front of us, behind me, over there, it's important to think of where we're starting from. Are we at the very bottom? Probably not. Are we partway up? And importantly, how will you get there? Where are we starting from? How will you get there? How will you know that you're there? So again, like on the business side, we put goals in place. We put measures in place. We put those, SMART goals in place. So we have a sense of, I don't know if you're like me, but it's always like not good enough. I always want more and more and more and more. We can do better, which is exhausting. But, taking the time to write a plan and put goals in place, all of a sudden you're like, okay, like we did that. Like we achieved that. We did what we set out to do. Does that mean we have to go further? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe a different direction. But, thinking where you're starting from and having the tools in place to do that, super important. How will you get there when you've defined what success looks like? And again, I go back to my three sisters and the crazy aunt of farm business management: preparation, perseverance, passion, and compassion for yourself and for each other. That was my Jerry Springer moment. If anyone caught it, a little reference there. And I would just end with, together, I think we can reach new heights, and we can start today. Maybe we started last night. I'd like to think we did. But yeah, that's it for me. So thanks very much. And, nice. Hold for applause.